Welcome to Echoes of the Unknown, the podcast where we'll be exploring some of the world's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. I'm Jack Montgomery, and today we're traveling back to 1977, when a radio telescope in Ohio captured a mysterious signal that has captivated astronomers and skywatchers for decades. Known as the wow signal, it was a brief burst of radio waves from the cosmos that still remains unexplained to this day. On the night of August 15, 1977, something strange happened in the quiet countryside of central Ohio, specifically at the Ohio State University Radio Observatory. Known as the Big Ear, the observatory was a large radio telescope used for astronomical surveys, as well as the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It was designed by American physicist and electrical engineer John Krause. That night, the radio telescope detected a powerful, narrow-band radio transmission that did not behave like anything scientists had ever seen before. Appearing to come from deep space near the constellation Sagittarius, astronomer and OSU professor Jerry Emmon immediately recognized that what he was seeing was extraordinary. He used a red pen to circle the sequence and scribble a single word in the margin of the printout. Wow! The signal lasted exactly 72 seconds, and then it was gone. It would later become known simply as the wow signal. To understand why the wow signal still matters, it helps to understand the context in which it was discovered. During the 1970s, a growing number of scientists were seriously engaged in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, often referred to as SETI. Rather than listening for spoken messages or obvious patterns, researchers focused on radio frequencies that nature itself rarely produces. One such frequency is 1420 megahertz, also known as the hydrogen line. Neutral hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, naturally emits radiation at this frequency. Because hydrogen is everywhere, astronomers reason that any technologically advanced civilization might choose this frequency to broadcast a signal, knowing that others would be watching it closely. The Big Ear telescope was well suited for this task. Unlike a typical dish-shaped radio telescope, Big Ear was a massive fixed-ground reflector that used the Earth's rotation to scan the sky for radio waves. As the planet turned, different sections of space passed overhead. Any signal detected would naturally rise and fall in strength as it moved through the telescope's field of view. This predictable behavior would later become one of the most important clues in the wow signal mystery. The telescope fed its data into a computer that printed long sheets of paper filled with alphanumeric codes. Each character represented the intensity of radio waves detected during a short interval of time. Most of the time, the printouts were unremarkable. Random noise, weak signals from known cosmic sources, occasional interference from Earth-based transmissions. But in that August night, something extremely unusual stood out. Several days later, Jerry Emmon was reviewing the printouts. As he scanned the pages, one sequence of characters leapt out at him, 6EQUJ5. These characters indicated a signal that grew rapidly in intensity, peaked, and then faded away. Exactly as expected for a source passing through Big Ear's observational window. The peak strength of the signal was far stronger than typical background noise, reaching a level that scientists had not previously observed at that frequency. The fact that the signal lasted exactly 72 seconds was a crucial detail, since it matched the amount of time it would take for a fixed celestial source to pass through Big Ear's detection range. If the signal had come from Earth, such as a nearby transmitter or satellite, it would not have followed this precise rise and fall pattern. Instead, it would likely have persisted or fluctuated irregularly. The wow signal behaved as though it originated far beyond our planet. The frequency of the signal was also striking. It appeared extremely close to the hydrogen line within a region of the radio spectrum that international agreements reserve for astronomical research. This makes interference from human technology less likely, though not impossible. What the signal did not do is just as important as what it did. It never repeated. Scientists immediately attempted to re-observe the same region of the sky, hoping to detect it again. They never did. Over the years, the area was scanned repeatedly, using increasingly sophisticated instruments. Nothing remotely similar has ever been found. The direction from which the signal appeared to originate lies in the constellation Sagittarius, near the galactic plane of the Milky Way. This region is dense with stars, gas clouds, and complex radio sources. While that makes it a plausible place for something interesting to occur, it also complicates analysis. After all, many natural phenomena produce radio emissions, and distinguishing between them can be challenging. Still, the WOW signal stood apart. It was narrowband, meaning it occupied a very small range of frequencies. Most natural cosmic radio sources produce broadband emissions, spreading energy across a wide frequency range. Narrowband signals are typically associated with artificial sources, such as human-made transmitters. This characteristic alone made the signal remarkable. In the years that followed, scientists proposed numerous explanations. Some suggested that the signal might have come from a previously unknown astronomical object, such as a rare type of stellar flare or an unusual gas cloud. Others considered the possibility of a comet. That's because comets contain hydrogen, and as they travel through space, they can emit radio waves at the hydrogen line frequency. For decades, the comet hypothesis remained controversial. Critics pointed out that comets were well studied and had never been observed producing signals of this strength or narrowness. Additionally, known comets did not appear to be in the right location at the time. However, in 2017, an astronomer named Antonio Paris proposed that two comets, previously undiscovered in 1977, might have passed through the relevant region of space. Observations of these comets showed weak hydrogen emissions, but nothing conclusively matching the WOW signal. Another proposed explanation involves terrestrial interference. Despite the fact that the hydrogen line frequency is a globally protected radio spectrum band, internationally reserved for radio astronomy research, it is not entirely immune to human-made signals. Military transmissions, satellites, and experimental equipment can sometimes leak into restricted bands. A 2010 study documented several instances of terrestrial sources either interfering from adjacent frequency bands or illegally transmitting within the spectrum. But again, the behavior of the signal posed a problem. It did not drift in frequency, which would be expected from a satellite in motion. It also did not reappear, which would be expected if the source were a repeating human technology. Some scientists have suggested that the signal may have come from a reflection. A terrestrial signal bouncing off a piece of space debris or a distant object could, in theory, produce a brief, intense burst. But such scenarios tend to produce distorted or broadened signals, not the clean narrowband spike observed in 1977. Back in 1994, Emmons said, "We should have seen it again when we looked for it 50 times. Something suggests it was an Earth source signal that simply got reflected off a piece of space debris." However, he later largely recanted his earlier skepticism after further research showed the unrealistic requirements that a spaceborne reflector would need to have in order to produce the observed signal. In a 1997 paper, Eman resisted what he called drawing vast conclusions from half-vast data. He acknowledged the possibility that the source may have been military or otherwise a product of earthbound sources. However, years later, in a 2019 interview with author and futurist John Michael Gaudio, he stated, "I'm convinced that the WOW signal certainly has the potential of being the first signal from extraterrestrial intelligence." Several years later, in August 2024, researchers led by Abel Mendez at the Planetary Habitability Laboratory at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo posted a preprint titled Arecibo WOW, an astrophysical explanation for the WOW signal. The paper has not yet been through formal peer review, but it presents new observational results and a proposed explanation for the long-standing mystery of the WOW signal. The team analyzed archival data from the Arecibo Observatory, specifically drift scan observations at 1420 MHz made between February and May 2020, the same frequency where the original WOW signal was detected. These observations were more sensitive and had better temporal resolution and polarization data than their original Big Ear dataset. They detected multiple narrowband radio signals near the hydrogen line, similar in frequency to the 1977 signal, but about 100 times weaker and seen in multiple directions across the sky. These weaker signals are interpreted as emissions from small interstellar clouds of cold neutral hydrogen, rather than unique artificial transmissions. The researchers concluded that the WOW signal was likely caused by a rare astrophysical event, in which a transient, high-energy source, such as a magnetar flare, an immense flare from a highly magnetized star, energized a cold hydrogen cloud, causing it to suddenly surge in brightness. This process might produce a stimulated emission in the hydrogen line, mimicking the characteristics of the WOW signal. According to this hypothesis, the unusual strength and fleeting nature of the 1977 signal could have resulted from that rare alignment of source, hydrogen cloud, and observer, explaining why it has never been detected again at the same intensity. Finally, there is the explanation that has captured the public imagination more than any other, that the WOW signal was a transmission from an extraterrestrial civilization. Not a message necessarily, but perhaps a beacon, a simple signal meant to announce presence rather than convey information. If that were the case, it raises difficult questions. Why was it transmitted only once? Why has it never repeated, even after decades of observation? Some have suggested that it could have been a brief test transmission or a highly directional beam that happened to sweep past Earth by chance. Others argue that an advanced civilization might transmit intermittently or use technologies we do not yet understand. Skeptics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and a single unexplained signal, no matter how intriguing, does not meet that standard. They emphasize that science progresses by ruling out unknowns, not by filling gaps with speculation. What makes the WOW signal so enduring is that it resists resolution. Unlike many historical mysteries, it has not gradually yielded to new evidence or improved analysis. Instead, it remains frozen in time, a single data point that defies classification. The Big Ear telescope itself is gone now, dismantled in 1998 after its lease expired and the land was sold for development, making way for a golf course. The printouts remain, preserved and studied, but the instrument that captured the signal cannot be used again. Modern SETI programs use far more advanced equipment, capable of scanning wider swaths of the sky with greater sensitivity. They have detected thousands of candidate signals, most of which are eventually traced back to human interference. None have matched the unique combination of features exhibited by the WOW signal. In a sense, the mystery is compounded by progress. We are now better equipped than ever to search for extraterrestrial signals, yet the most compelling candidate remains one that occurred nearly 50 years ago, recorded by a machine printing ink on paper. The WOW signal also highlights a deeper question about how we define evidence. Is a single anomalous observation enough to justify continued attention? Or does its failure to repeat render it little more than a curiosity? Scientists differ in their answers, but most agree that the signal deserves its place in the history of astronomy, if only as a reminder of how much we do not yet understand. There is also a philosophical dimension to the mystery. The WOW signal arrived during a period of optimism about the search for extraterrestrial life. Humanity had recently walked on the moon. Radio astronomy was advancing rapidly. The idea that we might soon detect evidence of other intelligent beings seemed plausible, even likely. The signal appeared to validate that hope, if only briefly. In the decades since, expectations have become more cautious. The universe is vast, and intelligent life may be rare, short-lived, or simply difficult to detect. The silence that followed the WOW signal could mean many things, none of them definitive. It is possible that the signal was the result of a natural phenomenon we have yet to identify. It is possible that it was a rare convergence of circumstances, unlikely to ever occur again. It is possible that it was artificial in origin, but unrelated to extraterrestrial intelligence. And, however unlikely, it is possible that it was exactly what many people hoped it to be, a brief whisper from another civilization, lost amid the cosmic noise. What we know for certain is limited. The WOW signal was real. It was detected by reliable equipment. It exhibited characteristics consistent with a distant, non-terrestrial source, and it has never been explained. That combination is rare in science. Most anomalies eventually find their place within existing frameworks or prompt the creation of new ones. The WOW signal has done neither. It remains an outlier, a reminder that even in an age of advanced technology and rigorous methodology, the universe can still surprise us. When Jerry Emmon wrote "Wow" in the margin of that printout, he captured a moment of genuine astonishment. Not triumph, not certainty, but wonder. That feeling persists today, shared by scientists and the public alike. The enigmatic signal does not tell us who might be out there or whether anyone is listening. It tells us only that, once, something unexpected reached across space and briefly made itself known, and then, just as suddenly, it vanished. While the origins of that 72-second signal remain a mystery, it continues to inspire both scientists and enthusiasts to look up and wonder about the vast mysteries that the universe still holds. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Echoes of the Unknown. If you found this story compelling, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with fellow mystery lovers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, not every mystery ends with an answer. Some end with a question.